All right, Ina, you just passed. You did great. How good do you feel right now?
I feel awesome. It's a huge weight off my shoulders. And it's just kind of like, oh, that's done.
All right, that's good. All right, so cool. So you're in the 7-day accelerator. Let's walk through kind of your basic story. Like, first of all, how long from beginning to end did it take you with the accelerator stuff?
So I ran through the accelerator pretty quick because I had a legitimate deadline. I'm active duty military. I had to get my board certification in order to get
Nice.
promoted. I went to PMI because although I'm in healthcare, PMI applies to all other areas and it
Sure.
doesn't only pigeonhole me as like other board certifications. So I had to pass. I had to pass. There was no and ifs or buts before November 20th. That's it. Like I had to call my boss as soon as I passed or failed, everything. I got on the coaching call and my coach, Salvador, at that time was like, all right, we can work with this, but you're going to have to be all in and then some. So we created a schedule and I had pretty much 7 days to go through the 7-day accelerator. And that sounds very intuitive. However, when you're really trying to absorb the material while working full time and parenting full time, and oh, by the way, we're homeschooling now. It was a little bit of a challenge because it is a lot of material, but I did go through it in about 8 days.
I mean, okay, that's not bad. Like that's I don't have enough fingers for all the things that you said. All right, let's try it. Homeschooling. You're in the
Right.
military and you're trying to get it with the pressure of like you have to do it. You were like,
In
oh, it,
healthcare military
and
right
there
now.
happens to be a global pandemic of which we've never experienced
Right,
before.
right.
Okay, and all these things on top of it, yet you're still smiling, and that's probably like just a testament to who you are as a person, and you're managing the family, and you're building up your kids and life and all that stuff, and like it's a beautiful thing. So I love what Salvador said, like at the beginning with you, and how you responded, like, "Hey, we have to be all in and a little bit more," and you guys set down a plan. Now, at that point, I know military and stuff, like you've done big, crazy, important things. Like,
Right.
were you scared at the time or apprehensive? What were you feeling?
So that's one of those things that maybe it is because I'm in the military. Like, there are very few choices when we're given orders by experts. We salute smartly and move on, right? Unless it's
Yes,
an
ma'am.
unlawful order. So, since Salvador's orders weren't unlawful, you salute smartly, and, and you move on. And actually, what really worked for me with the 7-day accelerator was the fact that if there was something, because we are doing a lot right now and everybody can look at the news, but if something were to happen, it wasn't like a boot camp that you're checked out of work for 7 days or whatever, but I could pause,
Mm-hmm.
take a phone call, do a task or whatever it is, then realize, hey, I was really distracted in my last 20 or like 10 minutes or 5 minutes of this video, rewind, go through again.
Yes.
So the way the program is set up right now really worked well for me because it's not like I had to step out of a class, miss the interaction, not know what I missed, and then go back in. I could literally pause, do what I needed to do at home, school, work, and then go back in.
Mm. Genius. I think that's great because, like, a lot of times I find that when people take these boot camps and stuff, they become a stenographer, like writing everything
Yes.
down instead of learning. And it's like, don't do that. Like, it's not good. That's why they
And
have
you
to.
check out,
Yeah,
right? You check out.
yeah.
So like for me, I actually have done a boot camp before. And to be honest with you, I don't remember anything past day 2 at all. The testing center's closed. I did a boot camp in March and the testing center's closed. So I couldn't take the test. And I'm kind of happy that I didn't because I would have failed. I checked out. Your attention span is only this much. So yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, that's cool. And so you methodically went through each day, kind of managed yourself. Like, what was the interaction, or like, let's talk about like the material. Like, you took the boot camp, you don't remember anything past day 2. When you stepped into the like my videos, like this is the first time that you and I have talked, like other than like on the
Right.
telephone call, like, hey, you want to talk? Like you were going through so quickly, you didn't even get access to me. and then you just dealt with Salvador, which is good. I mean, he did his job. He's awesome. When you started, talk me through like the first time you hit the video and you're like 30 minutes in, what was going through your brain? Was it making sense? What was going on?
So let me back up a little bit. Actually,
Sure.
I listened to your audiobook on the way to take the PMP exam for the first time, and I had to drive a little bit. And I listened to your audiobook as a supplement to my other boot camp studying or whatever. And I knew that I thought, okay, well, I had planning done and executing. I'll only listen to the audiobook for monitoring and then monitoring and controlling and closing. I didn't listen to the audiobook on initiating and planning, only executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. The first time I took the test, those are the only 3 parts that I passed. The boot camp things that I thought I had, I failed. So that's why when I went onto your website and during your audiobook, you kind of talk about, hey, my course. So then I went on your website and just wrote like, hey, this audiobook helped me, in the little interaction that I had, helped me grasp the material so much better than this boot camp. What do you guys offer? So then I signed on to the accelerator. And I took the test on the Monday, failed it. Tuesday, I wrote a little note on your website. John called me. We signed up for the class. On Tuesday evening, I had my first coaching call. And that's when it kind of clicked. So I don't know if other people do it, but in the military, we have this method for learning. You learn it, you do it, and then you teach it, right?
Yes.
That's how you grasp the material. So what I noticed with your class is going through the accelerator, you learn it by going through the video. And then you do it by taking the box quiz, which are actually genius, and I'll kind of touch on that later, why they're so genius to have after each section. And then you teach it by talking to your other people in the coaching calls, and you explain your methodology. So all of a sudden, you, without even meaning to, your class is actually set up to learn, do, teach.
Yeah. Didn't know it. Did it because it made sense. Like I'm learning about all these things people are saying like, oh, did you know that you do this kind of learning, teaching, whatever? And I was like, nope. But I just thought like in my head, and I'll let you go, but I'll tell you about how I developed the course, like what went through my head when I had to. But okay, so keep going a little bit.
Yeah. So that was kind of like the thing that not only during that day, not only did I learn how to initiate, then I also went into the quizzes, and then that night or a week later, or whatever, during the coaching calls, I would explain to my other classmates, oh, this is initiating. And you get other perspectives too of how other people process it, and the questions that they ask. So, but the reason why I really like the box quizzes, and I don't think a lot of people give them enough credit. So when I was taking the test, the first thing, when I read the question, I go, where am I, right? Where am I in the process? And that's not as easy to tell. For anybody who's taking the exam knows that it's not so obvious all the time.
Right.
And then you say, what are they asking me? What information they gave me, whatever. But the first question is, where am I? When you go into these box quizzes and you have them labeled initiating process group, executing process group. Oh, yay, we got a guest.
Yeah.
We got a visitor.
I can't, if I'm gonna work all the time, this is what's going to happen. I got to get babies in here occasionally. Right. So, yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. I had to lock my door so mine don't, bug me for breakfast. Yeah. So that's the world we're living in. Yeah. So, but then when you go in there, you're like, oh, dang, this is the way an initiating question could be, asked. Like it kind of clicks that, oh, I know I'm in the initiating process group because that's what I'm taking the quiz for. But if I would have not known better, I would think this is executing.
Yes.
And that makes you it made me go in and be like, why would I think that it's executing and why is it initiating? Yes. So as I was going through those things, when I was taking the test, that muscle memory in my brain was already created that I'm like, oh, this really looks like closing, but actually, I bet it's not.
Right. And so like being able to identify yourself, like, was that a hard muscle to build or what was it like, or how did you do it?
I wouldn't say, I think the way the course is set up, it's not, because you make it instinctive rather than memorization, right? And a lot of stuff, the question is, what would I do? Where am I? What would I do next? What is wanted of me? What should I have done before?
Right.
It's difficult if you're not practicing all the time, but the way the 7-day accelerator is built with the coaching calls and the hard questions and all of that stuff, there's enough material on your website to really kind of get into the groove of it, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the weird part. Like when you start putting it, were you able to put your military self into the process? Like
100%, 100%. And I'm very happy, for me, it wasn't just, I know that the certification is very valuable on the outside.
Yeah.
But for me, that knowledge is actually very valuable to be in the military because it makes you think about the whole project, about all the stakeholders. And that's how we operate, right?
Yes.
So it's not only my boss that I care about or our patients in the military hospital. Okay, the stakeholders are also the taxpayers. It's also the congressmen. It's also the government legislators,
right,
and all of this stuff. So it was very applicable to my military job, to my healthcare job, 100%.
That's awesome. That's super awesome. And I like how you kind of like methodically went through it. And it sounded like you were, I don't know if this is just post class, but were you thinking while you're doing it about like, how am I learning? Is something working, like, or were you just following along?
I actually had to think about how am I learning? What's working for me? How is it sticking?
Yes.
Because I didn't have a whole lot of leeway for mistakes. It was such a tight timeline for me that things that weren't working had to be dumped real quick.
Really quick, quick feedback loops in a sense. And so as you went through, you had that big plan, the guys nailed it down at the beginning with you and Salvador. What was the interaction with Salvador as you went through? Like, how was that? How did that go?
So Salvador, he definitely keeps you accountable. It's not like one of those things. So he built a spreadsheet. And I'm a healthcare administrator. Like, spreadsheets are my bread and butter, they're gospel. So once I see my name on a spreadsheet with deadlines, it's go time. Yeah. So he has this like legitimate spreadsheet, and this is what you're supposed to do by day and all of that. The weekend before the test, in a way, I was like, oh, finally, dad's off my back. I can kind of study. No way. This guy is like emailing me, like, we got 48 hours. We got, this to do this. And how are you doing it? What is your score? And I'm like, in a way, as an adult, you're not used to somebody monitoring your grades. But it was really, really good because it made me realize, hey, this is a person who's an expert in this, right? And this is what he's telling me to do. So no excuses. No, I got this. I don't got this. I failed the first time when I thought I got this. And I went into my office while my kids stayed at home. I did the 200, question quizzes. And that was so important. I'm so glad that he pushed me to do that, because I noticed, hey, at about a question 120, I start losing patience. I start, getting tired. I start missing words. So when I was taking the real test, I was like, go back, like right now, you're going to start losing patience. You're going to start getting, tired. So yeah.
That's awesome. And that spreadsheet, he's like, all our coaches are internally grown, and he's a student who just did well and took it off. And now he's like kind of our coach, like of the coaching calls. He's the thinker of the bunch, where it's like, hey, we should do this. We should do this. So he tests out theories, and we implement and kind of, get the feedback loops going quick. And so we're implementing that spreadsheet that he uses to say, because we get a lot of people like 7 days, 10 days, 12 days, 15 or less. And we're like, we have to be very prescriptive, or they'll give away hours and days and stuff like that. So it's just part of the game. So that's cool. I'm glad it went really well. And then, so like day of the exam, how are you feeling?
So day of the exam, I felt better. You still have that anxiety, right? Because I failed the first time. But I definitely, so the EVM, awesome. Like, if that was the big selling point for me, honestly, because the first time I treated the exam, I treated did like the GMAT or the GRE calculations. I wasn't grasping the concept. I didn't understand what they were standing for. So I was like, whatever. If I do well on the other ones, who cares about these calculations? Does not work like that. So as I went into the give the test, I was like, I already felt less anxiety because of all of the practice quizzes, right? I felt better, good. And then when I went in and I was able to write down my formulas, and like I didn't do the whole dump sheet because I knew it. Like I didn't have to do the knowledge area map. I knew exactly what processes. Like I watched the videos with the flows, so I knew intrinsically certain things that had to take place. I didn't have to like write it down, and that made me feel better. So once the test started going, and I was able to like throw away questions without doubting myself, then I was like, all right, we got this. We got this.
That's awesome. So I'll go into the EVM in a second, but the first time you went to the test, were you roughly confident or what?
Roughly confident. I was memorizing your EVM chart in my car 30 minutes before going into the test center. Probably
okay, so the first time so what, I don't know if this is yeah. That's it. I mean, if you're in the car going like, and then I walk in, like one guy said, like, he's like, I was taking it home and I had like my notebook. And then as soon as it started, I went like this. And I was like, yeah, pre-us, right. Like that should have been an indication. But,
right.
So one thing, I don't know if this resonates with you. Like a lot of times people get, I gotta get him up there. Here you go, buddy.
Yeah, get the child. That's the most
I gotta
important.
get this. He's doing great. They go into the first exam, like when they take a boot camp with it's almost like sometimes false confidence where they're like, oh, I got this. I'm going to do awesome because they've been told that like, all you got to do is memorize. And then they take some repeating tests and stuff. And then they go in there and they just walk into a buzzsaw.
Right.
Like,
and that was my experience. It's so weird that when I memorizing like formulas and the knowledge area map in the car and going in there without having that muscle memory. And then when I saw the screen that said, unfortunately, I was like, what?
Yeah. Like surprise, right?
And then, and it was really weird because there's a reason why the certification is so valuable, right? It's not that so many people can easily do it, but this time there was like a sense of calm of like, I know what I know. And I think that that's good. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then like the thing I realized is like the first time people go through a lot of times pre-us is that they get this like hubris in a sense, like I'm going to do it. And then boom, what happens a lot of times. That's why PMI has like a sub 50% pass rate, I think.
Right.
And then the second time when they do really, really well, because like, how did you do on the exam, like score wise? Like,
I haven't like looked at the actual thing, but I got three above target.
So that's really good.
Surprised.
Like that's above normal, right? And so like even with that, you were a little like, okay, like I'm a little apprehensive. I got a little butterfly, just a little bit like. But I think that's natural where you like, what you know, and that like, hey, like, I know there's a big world out there that I'm not a master at. And I think that's healthy. I think that's like I don't know.
Yeah. And that's exactly, even when I hit submit, and although I ended up doing very well on the test, even when I hit submit, I definitely like closed my eyes and said a little prayer. And then when I was like, God, please. And then when it actually said, congratulations, I was like, I think it took me a minute. Like I was really surprised. And then when it printed out and it had like 3 above target, I was like, whoa, dude, I killed it. That's when I finally felt like confident. And of course, my first email was to Salvador, because I was like, Salvador, I passed.
That is awesome.
Like telling your mom that you finally passed the test, So, yeah, I mean, it's a difficult test, but there's a certain, the way you look at questions. And also, the other thing that I did is the 58 questions decoded with you going through.
Yeah.
So I would pause. And I did that like I think a day before the exam or the day before the exam, somewhere like very close. I would pause, I would answer my question, and then if I was wrong, I would listen to your kind of explanation, but then I would go into the PMBOK and find your logic in the PMBOK.
Yeah. Like, don't
and
take
then
my word
say,
for it. Yeah.
right. And then I'm like, oh, that's the way you're supposed to be reading the
Yes.
explanations in PMBOK, right?
Have you ever thought about being a coach?
That actually helped me a whole lot. I don't know, maybe actually.
You see how I slipped it right in there, like trying to be sneaky about it, right? I'm just trying to marinate you on the idea, and then I'll go, oh, don't worry about it, and then we'll come back later, and I'm gonna do it again, and then eventually you're gonna say yes. That's my sneaky plan.
I kind of have, to be honest with you, because I'm very enthusiastic about this process. Like, I think the way you taught, it was, I don't know. I'm really happy about what it did for me. It just created. And another thing that's really important and you could take that out of the video, but in the beginning of your audiobook, you say, think about the reasons why you're taking the test and the need for succeed. And as I was about to go take the test, I kissed my daughter and tell her, like, hey, I'm going to take the test. You guys can't contact me for 4 hours. Here's a test center. I'm a single mom, by the way. So, and my daughter said, Mom, please pass. I can't take this anymore. Like, they were so done with the PMBOK. Like, my son was like, I can tell you who the stakeholders are. Just leave me alone.
That's a good thing.
That's your life, right? So yeah, a little bit, because at the end of the day, I came home and just the joy that my kids had, like how my bosses were like, awesome, we can push you for this job.
Yes.
And I couldn't do it on my own, and I couldn't do it without the program. So in a way, like, I want to give people that. Like, I want to help people like walk into their family's house and say, like, ugh, it's done, guys. Dude, we can eat dinner tonight without being timed.
That's the best part of my job. Like, if you've seen any of my videos, you've seen me cry on videos. So like, and it's not bullshit. Like, right. The stories that I hear about the pain there's real pain in life, like COVID, like there's wars, there's bad stuff that's going on. That's real pain. Right. But the personal sacrifice and the personal, like, I see a lot of like project managers and stuff who are like, they're doing this not for fun, but to build themselves up, be a better, because of the way they've been taught or lack of supported, they start to question their own abilities and worth. And I'm like, oh, that's not good as a human being, to like question whether I'm good at my job and I'll be happy there. And I'm not to be overly dramatic, but I imagine it radiates through like their lives. And I'm like, well, let's try to end that. And so, yeah. So, So in our little way, we can do that, which is nice. So it's about
absolutely.
I don't know.
So I think, and just the collaborative thing. It's just and there's also the thing is that with that first boot camp that I took, like I paid them a ton of money. I failed. They were like, we'll pay to retest and buy. You can sit in the same program. And I'm like, but the first time it made me fail. Like, why would I want to do it again? Like, I don't understand the plot. Like, thank you. It's kind of like ordering undercooked chicken at a restaurant, and they're like, we'll give you more undercooked chicken for free. Like, that's not why I came here.
I think that's like a really, really good. Yeah, you gave me salmonella before and I almost died. I'm not coming to get another one. Like, yeah. I like it how, not to get like about these people, but I might as well, is that they have it written into like their policy. When you fail, we'll do whatever. And I'm like, how many people are you failing that you have a policy for this? Like, we've had 8 out of 174. And so it's like, and we are like doubling down. Like, everyone's my responsibility. But yeah, no undercooked chicken. And then the other thing is, like, I think you said earlier, I looked at what was working for me and I doubled on that. And I took everything that wasn't working and I just threw it to the side. Yeah, buddy.
But that's the cool thing about the program too, right? Is that some people can shut down their life and sit there and do the accelerator course 8 hours a day. Some people can do that. And if you can, then the program is built for you, right? Some people like me can't. Some people have to pause, walk away, cook dinner, yell at the kids, answer an email, and then go on. And the program is still built for you though, right? So I think that's what's great about the program, is the fact that it works for either one.
Yeah. I mean, that is the biggest thing that we realized is like PMI potentially might try to make me, I shouldn't say this on that thing, buddy, we gotta get together on this. We're on the border, like crashing this baby. Hold on for a second. He really likes the mouse and the screen. And give me 1 second. We've done, give me one. I'm gonna pause for 1 second. I'll be right back. All right. I'll be right back. All right. So that's his post baby. All right. So he likes working. Apparently this is good. All right. So you were saying, why don't you walk me through it again? So you said like, if you're like super duper busy or you're not, like the program works for you, walk me through it.
Right. So what I was saying is like, if, so everybody has a different life situation. Right. And if you can shut yourself out from the world for 8 hours a day and do that, and if that works for you mentally, you could do that with this program. You totally can. But at the same time, if you are like me, like right now, I'm working full time. I'm single parenting and homeschooling kids. I've also got a new puppy because I love making my life as difficult as it possibly can be. And I have to pause and then come back. Then the program is built for you too. And then the other thing too, that, as a lot of people don't realize, that not everybody works 9 to 5. And so that boot camp, setup that people have, there's no PMI nighttime boot camps, but I can tell you, being in healthcare, there are plenty of nurses and doctors that work the night shift. So, a lot of times these boot camps and stuff like that are generally like square pegs that you try to shove into the round hole of your life. Yeah. And your program is really good that not only the teaching method, but the flexibility of it. With timelines, you can do your coaching call at noon. Yeah. During your lunch hour, or you could do it in the evenings, and it's not like one. There's plenty of them.
Yeah. That's the thing that we're like onto this thing. And I don't know if I told like the story, like how I developed it. It was like a person at a DC consultant company called me and asked like, hey, we have a contract. We've already gotten it, but we have to have them like locked in on PMP in 7 days. We don't have any PMPs in our firm. We don't know what the deal is, but we're going to do it. Can you do it? And I was like, maybe. Yeah. I mean, there's no one else I would trust but me. And I go, all right, if you do whatever I say, I'll do it. And they said, okay, whatever. And they said the person had to work a certain amount during the day just because it was a going contract. And I go, okay, I can work around it as long as they can work around it, but I'm all in. And so they were like, what should we do right now? And I was like, this. And I just like, hey, read the case stories, do some other stuff, get your application going. We'll get to 35 hours pretty soon, and then we'll put it in. Sweet. And then that night I was like, oh no, what did I do? Like, how did I accept this? Like, okay. And I was like, right. But like people have been calling me crying for years. And like, hey, I failed it. Andy, Rita, Cornelius, who are, PMs, whatever, PM training, you name them all. They let me down. The O2O program screwed me, like all these different things, whatever. And I go, no problem. Let me try to break it down for you. So I had all these lessons where I was like, my best stuff refining and like working with people who are having problems. And I was like, I'm just going to teach like a human. And I was like, let me just teach like a human and let me work like one-on-one and let me just try to draw it out of them. So that's how I did it. And I did it all live the first, 5-6 times. And then I started the coaching things. And the biggest thing was like, they were like, oh, I like how you like took it over like multiple loops. Cause I was like, I just got to make sure they know it. I got to make sure they know it. And then the last thing, like I was like constantly asking like, just go ahead and explain it to me. Just do my job for me. Explain it for me. Like, do you understand it? And it wasn't for any other reason. It was like, once they did, now that you're telling me like this do, learn, do, teach thing, it's like, yeah, they're learning. And then they're kind of like doing by some of the questions live and they're like teaching me back. And I was like, oh, that's working. But then the last thing I realized was like 3 days in or 4 days in, I was like, I'm scared that they can't answer these hard questions. And I'm scared that I'm creating false positives or something. And so I made them solve problems and that like dropped them down again. And then I was like, okay, now I got the double on them. And so the cool part is we started solving more questions. That's how we got here. We ramped it up. We've done almost 70 now since COVID started. And everybody's worked pretty much. They're in between jobs where they're like mostly crazy workers, which is cool. And now the thing that I'm super excited, the reason I was telling you that is because like the stuff that you're talking about is like, you have a methodology, you have a thought process for like learning, and you have like you're like, oh, there's night and weekends and stuff. I think it's kind of fun because I'm going to put a little group together and go like, all right, guys, you've all been through this stuff. What could we do better? like, what are these little loops that we could create? And we got a bunch of cool ideas, and then we're going to put it together. And like volume 2 is going to be like, Lord willing, it's going to be really good. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
And honestly, I'm a huge, like everybody, I tell everybody at work, because for us in DC, to be honest with you, that PMI certificate, and you're in the area or whatever, that's a difference of $60K a year.
Yeah, it's crazy,
it's crazy. I'm staying in, but for me, it was a difference between a whole promotion. So, and not only that, but now having gone through the process, I feel like I can be better at my job. So that's the whole thing too, why I like your class a lot, that it didn't just help me pass the test. Like I actually understand the material. Like I understand the reason for the PMBOK. It's not a box check. Like I can actually go in there, and because my brain is trained to think like that, not just memorize, but actually think through the checklist and through the processes. I think it's good. It's like an entire college course that I took
in 7 days.
In 7 days.
While working and raising a dog and a family and solving the world's problems.
But at the end, but I passed, right? And that's the whole thing, is that if I could do it, like with all that, using that material, then and I'm not the only one, right? I'm not I think anybody can. It's a great program. It's phenomenal, actually.
That's awesome. And the coolest part is like, I went to a couple of PMI conferences, and I love PMI. Believe me, love them, love the PMBOK, all that stuff. But in the past, and like a lot of the conferences, when you meet people and they're like, hey, what do you do? And I'm like, yo, I bring the PMBOK alive. Like I actually bring it alive. That's my job. And they're like, I don't know what you mean. I was like, I train and I get people excited about the PMBOK, and we pass and we do really good and we get better at our jobs. And they're like, oh, the PMP, oh, man, I would never want to do that again. What a terrible experience. And I'm like, dude, yeah, precisely. Like, let's change that. Cause in our conversations for however long it's been today, we've mentioned IDOs at scantly, but we haven't been like, the way to pass this is memorize all the IDOs and do all these. Like, no, we've talked about real project management, how you respond to regular life, how you put it in your own terms, how you teach it and understand it. And like, that seems like a good thing for overall, like life and stuff. So I'll ask one, now that I said IDOs and stuff, like if you had to tell people whether they're using our program or whatever, like there's like one thing that they need to make sure that they do, or they need to make sure that they focus on to be successful, what would be that one thing if you relate to anything in your mind? What would it be?
Oh, I would say the flows. Like you said, I would say the flows. Because it really does make it 3-dimensional, right? So I would say know the flows, because once you know intrinsically what has to be done before or after, that's your knowledge area map. Like that's how you read the question is, okay, we're here. Have I done this already? No. Okay, then that's next. And that's really what it comes down to. But you have to know what comes next and what should have come before, and that's where the flows go.
Okay, and the biggest mistake somebody could make?
Not knowing where you are on the map. Like not having that little parachute man, your little parachute man, not knowing where he landed. I think that's really, as you're reading the question, and also reading the question flatly, you really have to understand it and bring it alive. You do. Create your project in your mind. Salvador's was making a bicycle, and whatever project that is, and go with that.
That's awesome. Well, I really, really appreciate you sharing everything you have today. We are very proud of how you did, and we're glad that it made a positive impact. And we don't want to stop working with you or whatever. So we're going to have plenty of like support stuff as we build out this network of professionals, and everybody's so invested. So we'll have you in that. And then we would love you to coach. All it would take is an hour and a half a week. It's all it would take. So,
let me. I think maybe after the holiday season, I would definitely consider. I think my kids are just happy to have me back for a little bit. Cool. So
I'll take it. I think that's a win. All right. Well, thank you very much, and I really, really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you, Scott. Thank you so much. So grateful. So fortunate to have found the program. Thank you so much.
Right on. Cool.
All right. Bye.